Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today I am very excited to introduce you to a new panel of co-hosts for our monthly overview. We're going to be looking at all of the astrology for the month of August, and I have four amazing new co-hosts to introduce you to. I'm going to be saying more about how formatting will work. We're trying on some new ways of formatting our monthly overview as well, but a lot of good astrology to look at this month, and I'm very excited to do that for you today. So that's our agenda for today. As always, before we get into this monthly overview, remember to like and subscribe. Share your comments and reflections if you have them. We love hearing from you. I am also going to take you over to the website for a couple of brief promotions. Here we go. I've got lots of new things I'm working with today on the screen. So give me just a second. Okay, there we go. So you head over to the website, and pretty soon on the events page, I'm going to be talking about this more next week. We are offering our first immersive training experience in a retreat setting. We're going to be going to Mexico in June of 2026, and we're going to be doing a full week immersive course, brand new course from Nightlight. Really excited about it. I'll be telling you more about that next week. The sale for the course, the retreat will go middle of August. That'll be on sale, and it's our first retreat since 2014. I'm really super excited about it, and I'll be telling you more about that next week. Go to the live talks. You'll see the other upcoming event on August 14th. I'm doing a talk on the 7th house, which is the place of love, marriage, relationships. It's also a house that's tied to the meaning of the setting sun. We're going to talk about this house, how you can understand it in your birth chart, which is always a very popular topic because everyone wants to know about love. So check that one out. When you register for that talk, if you can't attend live, you get the link to watch later. You always get the recordings for talks that you attend at Nightlight. So, all right, on that note, I'm very excited to introduce you to our new panelists. Welcome them on. Hey, guys. How's it going?
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi.
Hey. Excellent. I'm so glad you're all here. I can't wait to introduce all of you. We're gonna take time so you can meet each of our panelists today before we get into your content for the month. I want to say a big thank you to several hundred people who applied for a very limited number of positions as creative content contributors to the channel. All of our applicants came through our programs, students of our programs, in some cases alumni of our programs. And there was just a huge amount of talent, an embarrassment of riches talent-wise. Something we're really conscious of is trying to make sure that the kinds of people that you see and interact with on the channel represent the best talent that comes through our programs, as well as representing the diversity of our audience. And I'm really proud of that this year because we had a really diverse applicant pool, as well as a huge amount of talent to choose from. And that's really special, I think. I think that speaks to the openness of the Nightlight community, and as well as the amazing intelligence of the kinds of people that are coming through our programs. That means a lot to me. Anyway, all of these panelists are just amazing. You got to meet you get to meet our horoscope panelists as well this week. Can't wait for you to meet them. But Courtney, Shahrzad, Tim, and Bianca, very excited for you all to be here. Before we get into it, I want to tell you a little bit about the formatting, and then I'd like each of our new contributors to be able to introduce themselves for a moment. The new formatting is, we're just kind of playing with a new format for the year. We're breaking the month up transit-wise and assigning different delineation sections, you might say, to each of our panelists. So this way, Courtney's going to have a certain section of the month that she speaks about, Bianca another, Tim and Shahrzad another. And the idea behind this is that everyone can kind of spread their wings a little bit within a segment of the month creatively. And then I'll offer feedback on all of the sections as we go, and everyone else may jump in as well. So it'll be a little bit popcorn style, but we also have some ability to let each person kind of creatively focus in their prep work, which I think is really important. Sometimes it's hard to be as in-depth creatively if you're given the whole month, so that's something that I feel like we learned over the past year. By the way, for those of you who really loved Alexandra and Whitney in the monthly overview, what we're doing now every year as we bring in new contributors once yearly, we'll do so again next summer, will be that the previous year's contributors will be making bonus content for weekends throughout the months of the year to follow. And that really gives the content creators 2 years to work on building their creative platform and their abilities as content creators and astrologers. So you will still see Whitney and Alexandra, Alex and Dana creating some bonus content starting in August, September. You'll start seeing them appear on the weekends with some fun bonus episodes for all of you. And then this crew, a year from now, they'll take over those duties. And in that way, I think we have a stream of people who are using this platform to build and grow. And that's at the heart of what I care about as an astrologer is let's see a lot of people grow through this community. Anyway, on that note, I'd love to introduce you guys just briefly. Maybe we'll just go around the circle here, starting with Courtney and then Shahrzad, Tim, and Bianca. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and, how'd you get into astrology? What are you up to? Yeah, just give us a little intro.
Hey everybody, my name is Courtney and I'm a writer, I'm a rewilder, and also an astrologer. And I got into astrology, it's kind of something that's always been at the background, something that I've been interested in. But then when I found the Nightlight channel, something clicked. And so I was listening to the podcast for years before enrolling in the programs, and it's just kind of been like a launch pad since then. So yeah, that's the short version of the story for me.
What is rewilding, Courtney?
Rewilding is it's a really interesting term because it's a word that sprouted up in multiple places around the same time period. But for me, it's a process of reintegration with our wild roots in nature. It's like a physical process, kind of letting things be a little bit more, like it's kind of Taoist in that way. But it's also a spiritual practice. It's observation over manipulation, or perhaps observation and then manipulation.
I love that. Such a nice, there's so much, there's such a natural connection between animistic connections with nature and the cosmos and ancient astrology, I think. So I love that piece of your background. Really cool. And I can't wait for all of you to get to know Courtney, obviously through the content every month, but also following her. We're going to tell you how you can follow all these contributors going forward. Shahrzad.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shahrzad, and I am a student of Nightlight. And I always say that studying with Nightlight I'm not saying this because Adam is here. I always say that studying at Nightlight was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. It really changed everything for me, studying with such a great school with such a great teacher. My story with astrology started, it was very random. I randomly came across an astrologer and I had a reading, and that changed my life forever. And I am a Persian woman, and I always say that I am a biological child of Iran and I am an adopted child of Canada. And I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. You say your name for us one more time, because I know I'm personally still working on pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah, it's a Shahrzad, but Shahrzad you pronounce it very good, actually.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Tim.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Tim Pauldon. I'm out of Chicago. I got into astrology. I've been studying astrology now for about 3.5, almost 4 years. I started out, I'll just say it, Cap Sun. I'm a rising Gemini. Mercury is just all over my chart. And so I like to dig deep. I love psychology. I love personal growth and development. And just my hunger for more and more led me through Carl Jung and Tony Robbins. And then I start learning the commonality into metaphysical sciences, and the commonality among all of them was astrology. And I looked for something just something formal to really try to learn some spiritual sciences. And then I stumble upon Adam's channel, and it was the most creatively organized I'd ever seen astrology. it was like, this is how you could delineate, but there's a million ways to turn the jewel. And I found that was so grounding in like all of my practices. So joined Nightlight, went through year one, year two, I'm about to jump into horary, and just like never looked back. It's been great. And here I am. So super excited to be here.
I love that. And I have to say, like, watching so many auditions, I was like, wow, there are such talented people. And I know all of you are going to find all of these panelists super talented, but when your audition came through, your Mercury or your Hermes Gemini qualities like shone out. So I know everyone's going to love that.
Thank you.
Bianca.
Hi, my name is Bianca. I'm from New Zealand. I'm so excited and happy to be here. So, such an honor and privilege to be on your channel, Adam. So, I got into astrology. I've always been into astrology, but it was just that like sun sign type of astrology, and I'm a Cancer sun, so like all into all into this like divination and spirituality. And and then I started feeling like I needed to take this more seriously. And it was a couple of years ago. I had been following your channel for a while and was really impressed by just the level of detail that you go into, and the way you explain things is really intriguing and captivating to me. And I was like, I need to learn from this guy. So you were doing your promotion the year one, and I was like, right, like I'm sold, I'm in. So done year one, year two, horary. And I'm just, yeah, I love the Nightlight community and have made some long lasting friendships through your classes, Adam. So if you're thinking about studying with Adam and the Nightlight School, I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Bianca. I love that. By the way, Bianca's has to join us from like a radically different time zone. Like, what time is it for you right now?
It's almost 4 a.m., but
that's crazy. That's crazy.
But yeah, it'll be manageable in the future. Anyway, but I'm used to waking up early because I used to love joining live your classes, and they were usually around this time anyway. So it's almost kind of like a continuation of that habit of that routine.
Well,
yeah.
we're also going to try to adapt some of our recording times to make sure that you can sleep a little bit more too.
I'm committed.
Yeah. Oh, we love it. That's amazing. Well, welcome all of you. And again, I can't wait for all of you to see them in action. On that note, a little bit about August in overview. I'm going to say a few things, then we're going to get rolling. I'm going to hand it over to these special folks, and they're going to take you on a ride through the month. But I think there are some really interesting sequences. For sure, we're on the brink of eclipse season. So by the new moon in Virgo later in the month, we're going right into the eclipse windows that'll take us into September. We're not quite there, but like late August, we start ramping things up for eclipses again. There are some very powerful aspects from Venus at the start and close of the month. Squaring Saturn and Neptune at the beginning and at the end. There's a series of trines, sextiles, and then opposition to Pluto. So Venus has bookends the month in a really fascinating way. In the middle of the month, Venus is also joining with Jupiter, the great benefic Jupiter exalted in Cancer. That connection between the benefics will recur next June while we're on our first ever Nightlight retreat, by the way. The Venus conjunction to Jupiter, a lot of astrologers have highlighted that conjunction of the benefics as possibly one of the subjectively more exciting positive transits of the year. So that's in the middle of August. There's some interesting sequences from Mars getting into Libra, trining Uranus, opposing Saturn, opposing Neptune, trining Pluto. So a bunch of powerful Mars aspects we're going to look at today. There's a sun square to Uranus in the mix this month, as well as that new moon in Virgo, full moon in Aquarius this month. So lots to talk about. I think probably the headline for the month is, I would say, the Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Cancer. That conjunction I've looked at recently, going back And probably later in August, I'll take you back into some previous times when those two planets met up, because when I tracked them in my own life, I found that really interesting. I'm not going to say a whole lot more other than to just kind of topically survey like I just did. So let's get right into it. We're going to start at the beginning of the month, and Bianca is going to talk with us about some of the most powerful transits that start the month. On the 1st of August, Venus is going to square Saturn. On the 2nd of August, Venus will square Neptune. They're basically taking place. You're listening to this the 31st. This is taking place tomorrow into Saturday. So this really is like right out the gates. These are the two transits that start our month. Bianca, what do you think about these? What did you get up to creatively thinking about these transits?
Yeah, so I first started out by just looking at Venus, what she's doing at the beginning of the month, just ingressing into Cancer, Cancer Sun and Moon here. So I was like, oh my God, and Jupiter Jupiter transiting at the moment. And I just thought, what is Venus? Venus is the archetype of love and to be loved, and she brings pleasure to others, and it's our capacity to enjoy ourselves and harmonize with other people. And so at first, I started out by just looking at Venus in Cancer and the ingress just on that alone. And then also I was looking at the phases of her synodic cycle with the sun. And I was like, wow, this is a powerful Venus. This is a warrior maiden, morning star Venus. She's like Inanna rising from the underworld, emerging with power. She's like this young or like yang type of Venus in her active, assertive phase. So she's the initiator, blazing forward with a purpose, like in pursuit of love rather than waiting to receive it. And I was just imagining this is not a soft Venus in her expression. She's ready to go to co-create, harmonize with courage and passion. So that in itself, for me, was quite striking. And then I started thinking, okay, so what would that look like to me? To me, it looks like someone who is pioneering a new expression of love, possibly, or exercising relational bravery. That's the Cancer watery piece to it, and having the capacity to be more open and vulnerable. There's more courage to go deep with your feelings and opening up in ways you may have been too shy to, or too timid or scared to do before. And I also looked at the host for those first 2 days in August, and the host of Cancer, or the host being the moon, is transiting through Scorpio. So I felt like Venus is off to a little bit of a rocky start, but it's a statement, it's powerful in my opinion. And then I'm like, okay, now the squares to Saturn in Aries. And when I think, okay, what does it look like for Venus to connect with Saturn, the planet of structure, responsibility, time? And I remember there was an episode that you had done last year, and you talked about Saturn and Venus and this idea of powerful devotion. I'm not sure if this rings a bell to you, but
Sure.
I just think, yeah, like, so when these two planets come together, I see that it's like love becomes a practice. It becomes a choice that we choose to show up every day. And I think in a world obsessed with instant gratification, it feels like devotion is scarce. And I think, well, devotion, it's like the meeting point of love, Venus, and commitment, that Saturnian piece. And it's where desire, Venus, meets discipline. And so I came up with 3 things of what I think devotion requires. So firstly, devotion requires boundaries. You need to exclude distractions and stay focused on one thing while saying no to other things, like that exclusivity piece. And then second of all, devotion requires action. What you care for, you tend to, whether it's a person or a practice or a project. Devotion is an ongoing care for something or someone. And then lastly, devotion requires commitment. And I think love matures through commitment. And Saturn will show us that love can be built over time. So that's, I had a little, I was thinking about this actually, thinking back to the cycle that started with Saturn and Venus back in April, I believe, and the conjunction, how it happened at 27 degrees Pisces. And I believe, Venus would have been exalted then. But I was thinking when I was doing my little meditation on this Saturn-Venus contact, I thought, okay, what was happening for me back in April, or just putting it out there, what were you pouring yourself into? Was there a relationship with a person or a practice or a place that was calling for more attention, that that was calling for more of your attention? And now fast forward to August, in this opening square where it's like, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to stay committed? And I have a bit of an example, if you don't mind me going into. Okay, awesome. So my parents are musical, and they are in a cover band, so nothing major. And so my mum she's more of a singer, and my dad was the drummer, but and that's his kind of like, that's what he was. He was in a band before he got married and had children, but now he just plays the bass guitar. But he is very musically inclined, and he is a bit of a musical perfectionist. And so about 10-15 years ago, my mum had bought him a drum kit, but she had shared with me last year that she actually has always wanted to play the drums, but has felt too scared to try, because like when I guess if you're married to like a musical perfectionist who is a drummer, you're it's a little bit like you're too scared to even try, because you don't want to face the criticism or be critiqued or that. So, but last year she just got this, I don't know, something shifted. She got this burst of courage and decided, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to I'm going to teach myself how to play the drums. And so she enrolled in an online course, and she would practice when my dad would leave the house. And now, so over time, through her dedication to this art or this craft of making music, she was getting better and better. At first, when my dad would come home and she was still practicing, he would just not really acknowledge it, just kind of go into the room and wait till she's finished or something like that. But now she was saying he's sometimes, if she's practicing, he'll come and he'll join her, and they'll do a little like jamming session with him on the bass guitar and her on the drums. And she's just like, for her, it's so exciting. It's like they're creating they're in the flow, they're in the rhythm together, and also she's been upgraded to the drummer in their cover band. So yeah, it's so cute. And then she was saying, yeah, right before our first gig, your dad pulled me aside and said, now don't go trying anything fancy now, just stick to the beat. I was like, brilliant, yeah. And she did, and she nailed it. So yeah, I just thought this is such a Venus Saturnian type of story in so many different ways. So yeah,
I love it. That's brilliant. Earlier this week on the channel, everyone knows we spent some time looking at Venus's squares to Neptune and Saturn. So people have heard most of what I have to say about the square already from previous content this week. So you may go back for some more of my thoughts on that, but I love the way that you talked about what sacrifices are required for love, art, beauty, devotion, what persistent, disciplined, focused, mature moments in love or relationships could be coming through, and what I mean, sometimes our love is perfected through certain moments of heartache. um there's a I always say Venus and Saturn is like the aging of a fine wine. There's a maturation that Saturn provides us with that um softens our edges as it provides edges. It's like, go through enough edges and you learn that they're just part of life, and you find ways of being more malleable and open. It's interesting to think about Venus and Saturn, Venus and Neptune right away. I love that you made mention of Venus as a morning star. She's initiating something right now. That's a really
Mhm.
important detail, especially the cardinality of Cancer
Mhm.
and Aries.
Mhm.
There's something that's being initiated. Maybe it's not completely stress-free, but it's creative.
Yeah, totally. And with the Venus, and specifically with the Venus square Neptune, I was thinking like the vibes for me was like just imagining someone on some kind of like romantic high or a beginning stages of a relationship where your newfound love interest can do no wrong. And then I was thinking that and there's like Venus embarking on a new journey when she's that morning star phase, ready to explore and carry out her hopes, wishes, and dreams. And I think because it's that Venus and Neptune, so we're talking topics to do with love, artistic expression, spirituality. And I also was thinking that there's, because it's the square, so it's the nature of Mars, this it can feel, I feel like I've been saying this a lot, but it's just a real statement to open up the month with this Venus and her squares to Neptune and Saturn. Um and there was a couple things that I thought, so it's going to be loud pronounced, right, with the square aspect, very dynamic. But there was another way that I was thinking about this Saturn, more Neptune and Venus, was like, I thought, okay, it really feels to me that possibly in this square it feels like idealism meets initiation, where Venus is moving from this kind of fantasy or the seedling that was planted back in I think the Neptune conjunction was in 1 degree Aries around early May, 1st or 2nd of May. And so I'm thinking, idealism, what were you thinking about? And now back in April, fast forward to August, it's like, okay, how are we moving from this fantasy idea into a lived experience? And then or just feeling, maybe experiencing disillusionment, like where is this real, like you might be facing a reality check. That's a Saturnian flavor to this. It could be like maybe a wake up call, or having emotional romantic disillusionment. But I think because Venus is a benefic, it's not going to feel too jarring. I think it's just an invitation for to let go of this perfectionist idea, and it's a time for Venus to experiment and to play, and it's like like you're becoming, and this process is not linear. It can be messy, and so it's just kind of like working your way through through this. But that's specifically what I had for Neptune and Venus. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it's a really powerful sequence to open the month. So I'm glad we took a little bit of extra time with it. And yeah, thank you for those. Those are really nice articulations. Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
We're going to move into the second segment of the month, which is, it's very thematic this month. As the month moves on, it was really helpful for us organizing our content this month, because like, oh, look, here's the Mars patch. If we fast forward this a little bit, I want to show you this sequence that Tim is going to be talking with us about next. On August 6th, Mars is going to enter the sign of Libra. Let me advance this just a touch so we can see that. There you go. Mars in Libra on the 6th. Right after that, Mars will trine Uranus in the sign of Gemini. It's then going to oppose Saturn in Aries, and then it's going to oppose Neptune, and then it's going to trine Pluto. And in the midst of that, we've got a full moon in Aquarius. So you've got, let's repeat that. Mars enters Libra, immediately trines Uranus. I'll draw these out for you so you can see them. Here's Mars's trine to Uranus. Then we've got the opposition to Saturn. Then we've got the opposition to Neptune. Then we've got the trine to Pluto. So a very, very Marsy little section of the month. And oh, by the way, in the midst of all of that, we have the full moon in the sign of Aquarius. So let's see here. If I go to the 9th, we get our full moon in Aquarius on the 9th. So that section of the month, very dynamic. I can't wait to hear what you've cooked up for us, Tim. And you just, you know what? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to get the active speaker to show only, but I keep choosing, as you guys have seen, I keep choosing the wrong layout. So I don't know what I'm doing. Let's see here. We'll go back to this and I'm going to put the chart back up on the screen, and I don't know if I can somehow reorganize us, but I'm going to try. Let's just do this for now. All right, let's get this screen back up. All right. Instead of, because if I put the banner in, it's cutting you off, Tim. So what I'll do is I'll just, I'll pop the banners up, and then I'll take them back down briefly after you go through it. So we're starting on the 6th. We're going through the 10th of August. And I just outlined all of those transits. So I don't even think I need to put the banners back up. You just tell us what you think about it, Tim.
All right, fantastic. Well, I think Bianca said you gave the perfect kind of introduction to this when you said Venus invited us to kind of take a look inside and like maybe reassess some things. I think Mars is going to come in and make that a little bit more radical if we didn't take that look. So I think we'll go ahead and start with Wednesday, August 6th. Mars enters Libra, enters his detriment. That's crazy. He's as far away as he can be from Aries. Like, this is completely not his comfort zone, right? Mars's action, will, drive, what I want, my agenda, like really pushing something forward. And we're talking about Mars entering the masculine cardinal air temple of Venus. What does Venus want? She wants relationships, diplomacy. She wants fairness, equality. She wants beauty, objective beauty, but beauty nonetheless, right? And one of the things, though, that I think is really fascinating, I'm going to kind of flesh it out a little bit, but with Mars going into Libra, Libra is an interesting sign for me. It's something that I feel like understanding Taurus and Venus's connection is like, oh, that's easy. You know, everything's burgeoning, flourishing, growth, green, beauty. Oh, I get it. Libra's a little bit different. But when I add in the layer that is the house of Saturn's exaltation, oh, here we go. Like, that added so many layers of definition. Saturn wants to bring boundaries. He wants to bring structure to things, right? And so when we're talking about things necessarily of like beauty, relationships, how do we bring structure to those things? Well, we can put laws in place. We can put contracts in place with business. So we have to use relational means in order for Mars to really try to get his agenda through and across, right? Mars don't like that. He wants to just be violent, attack, conquer, achieve whatever he's after. So being in that detriment, he has to think a little bit differently and try to use some of the tools, the Libran tools, using his charm, trying to use wit. I think part of the interesting thing too is that Mars can be manipulative, right? Again, it's what I want to get. And if I have to use diplomacy, wit, and charm, no one says that I have to have necessarily integrity behind that. I'm Mars. I want to get this done. And if I have to use people or go through contracts or forcibly, maybe on the surface, it looks like a healthy contract, but I want to get what I want out of this at the bottom line. So what I also think is fascinating is because Mars is in the exaltation of Saturn, and Saturn is opposing, which I'll talk about a little bit later, and Saturn will be opposing. Mars, when he first enters Libra, he's actually in the bound of Saturn. So even though Saturn's going to be in his detriment in Aries and he's going to be making an opposition, Saturn has quite a bit to say about Mars going into Libra and wanting to push forward this agenda. Saturn's right there. And then Venus being in Cancer, lending, like Mars may get a little bit frustrated, really trying to wield that sword. Again, too, because Libra is very, I think of the Queen of Swords in the Tarot. She's, it's an air sign. She's above this. She's calm. She's holding the sword straight up. It's like, no BS. We're not going to make hard, off the wall decisions. All of this has to be strategically, clearly thought out so that it's fair and balanced and equal. And so when you think of the warrior coming to see the queen who's telling him, like, no, we need a strategy, like that just is not, that's difficult. So some of the delineations that I think that we may see come up or that may really present themselves are like obviously forcefully trying to push a contract, an idea, or an agenda. It could be a social construct. It could be challenging maybe current laws or ways that relationships are currently operating. It could be also, I mean, Libra is, the natural ruler, I guess, of the 7th house of partnerships and relationships. So maybe that's an ally turned into an enemy, or maybe Mars, if that's signifying you, depending on whatever chart, maybe that means that you somewhat turn into an enemy, right? And there are other aspects, like when we're going to have this Uranus trine, that could completely spark that fuse to like, you found out some information and oh boy, that changes things a lot. So also for Mars and Libra, another really good thing too is using words and logic, using the tools of Venus and Saturn and wit to get your agenda across. So using that words and logic as your sword of power, so to speak, as your weapon of choice to get across. So again, manipulations and even sometimes overextending, maybe some energy mentally, running around in circles trying to, it could be completely contradictory to what you want because you're trying to manipulate people to get what you want because what you truly want maybe isn't really good for them. It's not good for the other party, but that's of no concern to Mars. He's not concerned about the other party, which is why he struggles here the most. So one of the, I like to use imagery and I like to use characters from like all kind or like personal references to highlight things. And one of the references that I think that I kind of came up with for this is Littlefinger in Game of Thrones. I feel like his literal superpower was he had little birds that would go around, like collect secrets, like learn all these things. And he would literally use that to blackmail people. He'd use it to move people in positions of power to follow his love. He was often seen as somewhat of a diplomat, but at the same time, he was terrorizing a lot of people behind the scenes, using his charm, using his connections to get through that. So that's not necessarily the most probably, the most expressive place for Mars to be able to fight because it's quite hidden, but it can be really effective. And I would say Littlefinger is probably one of the more successful integrated attempts, but we saw how that ended for him. So I would say that it's a tough struggle. It's a tough struggle with Mars going in that detriment. So now we've got Mars already kind of hindered. He's got to deal with these relationships and structures and things that boundaries that are kind of in his way. On August 8th, now we're getting a trine from Uranus. All right. So what is Uranus? He's shocking. It's unpredictable. More importantly to me, what I think Uranus really represents is progress and just simply the unexpected. Uranus went into Gemini, my first house, something that as a fellow air sign, I was just super, super excited about. But what I found Uranus to bring me is really this underlying buzz. And it's like a humming that's constantly there. It's almost like a restlessness, but it's not the Sagittarian restlessness of like, let's go out and explore. It's this level of like, not uncomfortability, but there's always something buzzing, or there's always something there that you can either pivot to or change or think about, or you're always on the cusp of something just completely shifting the way that you think, or shifting the way that my body is actually has become quite unpredictable. Some days I'm full of energy, like today I'm like, let's go. The other day I barely could get out of bed. So I think that Uranus, for good or for bad, regardless, is going to ignite Mars. Mars I see as the bomb. He's ready to go, just whatever, explode. Uranus is like, I would say like a static fuse. Like, sure, it's lightning and it's big and boom, but like a static fuse exploding a bomb, like that's something that's completely unpredictable. You would have had no idea when or how, but it's just that little boom shock that allows Mars to go boom and amplify. So that's a really, that could be a loud combination. So with Uranus being in Gemini sign, we're talking about communication, technology, we're talking about new ways of interacting, travel. So could it be, and we know trines are the nature of Jupiter, so something that's supporting Mars or whatever Mars's agenda and his detriment. So could it be that maybe there's potentially some new technology, or maybe there's some information that comes out that helps Mars to push his agenda forward, and whether he wants to do contracts or whether he wants to charm someone, maybe there's a piece of information that he can use to manipulate, or maybe there is an increase in some negotiations or contracts based on some new technology that was discovered. Maybe it's, it's automatic, crazy, some sort of drones that were like, oh, we don't want to go to war with those. So let's make a contract. Let's negotiate something so that doesn't go there. It also could mean that just simply, more information could lead to like war reconciliation. Also though, Uranus trining Mars is like kind of like, and especially with Uranus and Gemini, could be like a chaotic love of technology as well. Kind of a disregard maybe for, when I see Mars in like Libra, it could be like laws, regulations, and like pushing ahead. Maybe something new or novel pops up, and that supports pushing ahead with maybe not putting in necessarily the laws or structures that are in place. But I see that that's like a love of like this chaos, and maybe using those things to fight. And also that Uranus could be sending Mars literally technology tools to use to fight the Libran war, or to use to better those relationships, or to use as an arsenal to coerce or force or get his agenda across, whatever that is. Literally could be using brand new technologies. Something that I kind of think about, like when I started delineating and like putting this story together, the next thing that came up was kind of like the Matrix. And like Neo, kind of like this weird techno warrior type, like being, fed like truths and technology that helps him to kind of like break through and fight like this war. So I think something of that nature, something that we could use in like the arsenal to get his point across. Okay. So all of that. So we've got all of that going on. And then on August 8th, not even the same day as we're trining Uranus, I'm going to talk about these two in tandem, because like talking about them separate is quite a bit. We've got Mars opposing both Saturn and Neptune. Saturn and Neptune both are witch retrograde. They are both in Aries, which is super fascinating. So I'll start with Saturn, because Saturn is our big, cold, slow, karmic, heavy blockage guy. Plus, Mars is in his exaltation. Plus, Mars is actually beginning. He's in the bound of Saturn. So again, Saturn has something to say here. With Saturn being in Aries, Saturn wants to take his time. He's hesitant, second guessing, kind of like, let's put some structures in place. Mars is putting pressure on Saturn to get this done, whatever this is, whatever his agenda is. The interesting thing about it is Saturn is retrograde. So those significations, the cold, slow, delays, heavy losses, those are a little bit more internalized at this point. And with him conjoined Neptune, I would say the retrogradation of Saturn makes things, from my experience, whatever we've built as far as structures or foundations or what we have as a solid foundation. When Saturn goes retrograde, the things that don't work start falling apart. And it's like the test of time. I tell people Saturn to me is like the professor, and like when he's direct, you're going through your trials, you're trying to figure all this stuff out. And then when he's like retrograde, it's like quiz time. Like whatever you actually learned, whatever's actually working will stay. The rest of it is going to fall away. And so when we couple that with what's falling away with Neptune conjoined him, and Neptune's retrograde as well. So Neptune, we know illusions, apparitions, spirituality, can be, delusions. The image I like to think about Neptune is, I don't know if you guys, this is probably me dating myself, whatever. There's a perfume commercial, Britney Spears. She's running through like this enchanted forest or something. And you're like, oh, it's so pretty. Like there's all these like lights and fireflies. And it's just like this dark enchanted with all these cool colors. And it's like, that would be so fun to be there, but no one stopped to think like, hey, there's nothing in the forest that would light up red and blue. Like, what is that? Like, what, like, I like living in this little thing, but like, I don't really know. I'm not asking a lot of questions. That's how I think Neptune, I'm not asking a lot of questions. I just like it. And so I'm going to stay here. But when he goes retrograde, it's like now that comes internal. And so it's like, I feel like the lights kind of turn on, right? Slowly. And you're like, that was a lot prettier before I started. What happened? And so now it comes reflective. And I think it becomes like the spiritual reflection of like, there's some guilt there. Maybe that wasn't it, or maybe that wasn't what I was seeing or what I was necessarily thinking. Because when I have Mars opposite Neptune, naturally, I believe I see more of like the spiritual warrior. I'm ready to go fight a war because I believe in something. Has no idea if it's right or wrong or if it's grounded in facts. None of that. It's I believe I'm spiritually fighting for something. These are my beliefs. But when Neptune is retrograde, I feel like I'm fighting, but like, is that the only way? Is like, could there be something else? And so again, like the fog kind of lifts and you're like, was that the best like thing? So that Mars opposing Neptune, just like my imagery is, I think of an army, like an army vet turned like protester, right? Mm-hmm. Like went out, yeah, believe it, like let's go fight in the war, we got to do this, and then coming back in the retro, like it's over, and then the Neptune is like, maybe there's another, maybe peace could be a better way, right? And I think kind of lifting up some of that stuff. So anyway, with Mars opposite Saturn and Neptune, I consider Saturn and Neptune retrograde together. Saturn's dropping everything. Neptune's like, this is clear. It's like things are falling apart. It's like a hyper clarity. So we have kind of like this hyper clarity dynamic in the house of Mars of like whatever Mars is trying to push. It's like, whoa, that whatever's not working, and I see what's going on. I don't know how I feel about all of this kind of stuff. And with Mars shooting that ray, there's pressure, but again, he's still under the guise, a little bit of Saturn too. So what does all of that even mean? That means some delineations that I have is like, instead of Mars, it could be, going back to what Bianca said, that invite again to take a look internally is like, am I really doing, or am I really the person? Was that an illusion? Was I behaving in a way that wasn't natural to who I was? Are these foundations that we've set up in the areas of Mars, are these really real long-term goals and foundations for us, like reassessing the image, reassessing the vision, right? Because Neptune is visionaries and he's retrograde. So reassessing the foundation of the vision, does that make a lot of sense to us, right? And with Mars being in Libra, maybe that's a collective vision. Maybe that's the vision of social contracts and how the laws are being enforced, or businesses or whatever is being enforced. So it's really taking a look, and that's heavy. That's Mars is really at play here. The kind of interesting thing is about this this narrative is then August 9th, we go into a full moon in Aquarius. What is a full moon? It is a culmination of a cycle, right? Aquarius, fixed air sign, ruled by Saturn, detachment, the foreigner, the observer, innovation, futurism. We know what the moon is: caring, love, nurturing, home, emotions. It's watery, reflective, passive. Also sometimes represents the people. And so we got a full moon in Aquarius, which is like the moon is full of energy, full of light, and the home of the foreigner, the observer, the outside. What does that mean? How can that usually be translated? I have a moon in Aquarius, and what I can tell you is very much the observer, very much an objective kind of view of reality, very easy to take objective takes on your feelings to then kind of judge and or determine, should I feel sad or should I not? Typically the first thing you're doing is you're not crying. You're trying to observe and intellectualize to an extent what's going on. So as we've got that full moon there, I mean, some delineations are like, could be maybe either you or person or people feeling ostracized, right? And with the full moon, remember that sun is in Leo. So that sun is like ego, leaders. It's like having a good time. It's like, I'm shining, guys. And the moon is on the complete opposite. She's like, I'm not feeling this cold over here. Like, I'm in a Saturn sign. It just feels so disconnected. We have to reconcile how we feel, coming to a culmination standpoint about how we feel. And so this last part, after we have this mental or like cognitive emotional awakening of objectivity in Aquarius on the 9th, we go straight into August 10th, which is Mars trine Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto, death, control, subconscious. Simply what I'm getting is like Mars gets frustrated, right? That moon goes into Aquarius. Last time moon was in Aquarius really quickly was the DNC in Chicago, as well as there was the stop the what is it? It's not stop the steal. There is a it was an Israeli. They did a protest outside of the DNC. And I thought that summed up the opposition perfectly. The leaders are inside. Yeah, we're having a big, great convention. And the people are outside saying, no, that's not. You need to stop fighting Israel. Again, this Mars trine Pluto, really quickly, I want to finish this up. It's going to give Mars a nuclear type of ability on August 10th. So the people may not like what's necessarily going on with the leadership. Pluto then gives Mars a little bit of power. Pluto's retrograde, so it's going to be internal. So I can see some delineations: obsession with power, obsession with pushing that agenda in Libra, obsession with fighting or using these particular Libran charm, wit, manipulative tactics to really bring forth Mars's agenda. So Mars is super busy this month. Thank goodness we've got Venus and Jupiter in Cancer doing some magic, but he's very, very, very busy.
Yeah, we're going to be spending quite a bit of time on this sequence with content this month on the channel. So for those of you who are looking at this now and feeling a bit overwhelmed by the whole sequence, breaking it down little by little, one transit at a time, will be a big task for us this month, but something we're definitely going to be doing. So I think one thing that I would say is that when Mars goes through a sequence like this, and you've got some really nice kind of a grand air trine going on, but then a heated opposition, obviously in the middle of it between Mars, Saturn, and Neptune. I think it could be a testing moment for different or new or emergent emerging ideas or paradigms. You think about that grand air trine, I think a lot about the innovative ideas that come from air trines like that. Uranus, obviously, in Gemini is very innovative. Pluto in Aquarius, big picture thinking. Mars in Libra comes in and is like, well, I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but I've got a few ideas or plans. Or maybe these are ideas coming through, and like Tim was talking about with Mars and its detriment in Libra, maybe Mars is going to try to make things look as nice, and there's going to be a diplomatic underhandedness, like, oh, this is good for you. Trust me, this is a great thing. Like Mars and Libra will just do whatever it takes to get what it wants done and try to make things look better than maybe they are, or will use diplomacy to just work its own agenda. But whatever the case may be, something's being tested. There's a kind of inflection point in the month of August here for Mars, where I think ideas, thoughts, communication, technology are running up against some reality check or some kind of resistant feedback. And how Mars works through that oppositional tension is going to be a really interesting part of the month. So thank you, Tim, for breaking that down for us so nicely. The full moon in Aquarius right in the middle of it does, I think, speak to a collective voicing. And so I wouldn't be surprised if during this period of time we see real expressions of this Mars energy within groups, collectives, communities. That's really pretty consistent with the full moons in Aquarius. I think you're right about that. Well, let's move on to our next section. Courtney's going to be taking us through a few very interesting pieces of August. On August 11th, Mercury turns direct, finally. On the 12th, Venus conjoins Jupiter. Isn't that interesting that Mercury is appearing as a morning star, and Venus and Jupiter, the benefics, are conjoining together in Cancer? It's really kind of a interesting, I feel like, auspicious little sequence to follow an intense Mars period. So I like that. I like that the benefics are sort of hugging it out. We've got, following this, on the 23rd, we jump forward a little bit. There's a little bit of a quiet period from the 12th to the 23rd. We get a new moon in Virgo, officially taking us into the eclipse season. And then on the 24th, the sun will square Uranus. So Courtney's going to take us through this piece of the month and tell us her thoughts on the astrology here.
Yeah, so on August 11th, we've got Mercury stationing direct, and this signifies an end point for whatever reviews, revisions, or reversals was happening during the period of Mercury's retrograde. This stationing moment, we might see some like setting of rights, but hopefully with some new insights regarding the way that we're thinking, our thought structures and systems of organization, technology, communication, specifically around Leo themes, father stuff, solar stuff, the exaltation of the heart, and things that demand courage of us. And now that Mercury is stationing direct, he's on the last leg of his cycle. Mercury's next big move is to conjoin again with the heart of the sun, where it will be reborn. So there's something that's wrapping up here now regarding these themes. And then on June 12th, we've got Venus conjoining Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. And with the harmonizing qualities of Venus and Jupiter, and being in Cancer too, like there's something about nurturing, there's something about the pleasure body, they're all coming together. And the image that comes to mind is like a gathering of a group of friends, and these are the kind of friends that when you get together, it's like you never have to lift a finger. And it doesn't feel like anybody's lifting a finger because there's this sort of like natural creative energy. It's joyous to express creatively. And so you've got people who love to cook, bringing delicious food. You've got people making beautiful music. There's rich conversation. It's like this lush pleasure party of nurturance and like harmonization and peace and joy. But we can look a little bit deeper here. A book that I just finished reading by Robert McFarlane called Is a River Alive has been informing the way that I think about these Cancerian images in a really interesting way. And one of the rivers explored in this book is in Tamil Nadu in India. And McFarlane talks about how in the Tamil language is rich with proverbs about water. I mean, Tamil Nadu is like full of rivers. And one of these proverbs that he references says that water does not displace water. And while I don't have the Tamil cultural context to frame like all of the different meanings that might be contained in this phrase, what it makes me think of is how when you have a body of water, say a river, and you add more water into the river, a huge thunderstorm or something, water that's already in the river isn't pushed out. The water just, like the river, expands. And I think Jupiter and Venus are like this. They're harmonizing qualities, like they're not pushing each other out. There's no competition for their expression. They just expand and amplify each other's energy. And in the Ptolemaic tradition too, both Venus and Jupiter are considered moist planets. They're here in this watery place of Cancer. And it makes me think of the flooding of the Nile, which, historically, like the Egyptians would celebrate this period of time every year when the Nile would flood, because the flooding was what would reinvigorate the soil. It made it rich and black and fertile enough to feed a whole nation. But nowadays, I feel like when people think of floods, our context for a flood is a natural disaster. Like that's something we want to avoid. It's something that we flee from, which is not very, it's not like a classic expression of Jupiter and Venus, but there is a way in which they can flood our pleasure bodies. We can eat too much or spend too much money, or, we really indulge in these abundances. And then we've got the shadow side of this expression. I think if we can only conceive of a flood as devastating, it's because we don't know how to receive it. And so a big question for this conjunction is, when we're given more than what we need, what do we do with it? Do we have something to offer that abundance up to? Whether it's other beings, neighbors, friends, family, creatures in the environment itself. Do we have something that we can give this abundance up to in order to sustain and nourish, rather than being washed out by it?
Love that.
And then on August 23rd, we have this new moon in Virgo. The new moon in Virgo marks a seeding moment. Regarding Virgoan themes, we know the classic ones: integrity, morality, right relationship. But the reason Virgo is so obsessed with perfection is because when we look at the wheel of the year, Virgo season is the time of preparing for harvest. Like it's the harvest season, but it's also the time for preparing for winter. We have to prepare the harvest in a good way so that the food that we're bringing in now lasts us through the uncertain times of winter. I think preparation is a super crucial theme for this moment, because this new moon takes place within a degree from that square to Uranus. And it feels to me like that final gasp of breath before you jump off the airplane and hope that the parachute opens. Either you're already feeling changes in the environment, or perhaps you're only anticipating them. But there's a real question about how do we prepare these environments, not only our physical environment, but also our bodies and our psyches, for an uncertain time to come. It's very difficult to prepare for things that we can't predict, we can't expect, but there's still the necessity to shape the space to receive whatever shock is coming through.
I love that. I'll say, just briefly interject that the idea of a 0 Virgo new moon square to Uranus really does, to me, bring, I love that you mentioned preparation, because it really does strike me as a moment where also maybe initiation, like the crossing of the threshold from one stage of life to another, sometimes framed as like youth to adult, but initiating a chapter change and preparing ourselves for that, cleaning the space for that. I think a lot, for example, of when people find out that they're pregnant. In maybe it's a married couple, maybe not, maybe it's a surprise, maybe not. But when that news comes, the tendency is to nest build. Psychically, maybe first, but then physically, okay, this is going to be the room, and we're going to put a bassinet. I mean, whatever it is, we're going to paint the room. And I look at this and I think, oh yeah, prepping for a surprise pregnancy. Wouldn't that be the most Virgo new moon at 0 degrees square Uranus, where there's some surprising element that you suddenly have a lot of thought and care, maybe even anxiety or worry goes into prepping something. So anyway, just wanted to dovetail off from that really quick, Courtney, because that was just lovely.
On the following day, August 24th, we have the sun perfecting its square to Uranus. And while the sun's still in Virgo, we still have all of those preparation themes. Something particular about the sun in Virgo is the gathering of symbols. And while our culture has shifted greatly from when this was like an everyday sort of thing, that winter is a time of storytelling. If we look at indigenous cultures all over the world, the winter was when the stories came out. A lot of the time, the stories would sleep during the summertime, and then they would come out during winter. And we still have some of this. It's still significant. You can think about the light half of the year as the time for action and praxis and like this bringing forth of life. And the winter time is, it starts, we're getting cozy, but we're also contemplating. There's dreaming and storytelling happening during this time. And so the sun, in addition to like the gathering of food, there's a gathering of symbols to make sure that they're still alive. There's still the stories that we need to carry us through the winter. And the stories aren't only there to support morale during difficulty. There's also a way in which they shape us for the following spring. If we have the image of the seed, like there's so much necessity happening in the place of the soil between the fall and spring season. Like, certain seeds need to be cold stratified before they can bloom. So there's this shaping process that the sun is starting to think about in Virgo. And it's interesting that the sun now is receiving this superior square from Uranus and Gemini. Uranus and Gemini can be very morally ambivalent. It has this sort of progress and play agenda at all costs. And it's as if Uranus is challenging the sun to consider a new framework of ethics and ideals to make space to accommodate for whatever work Uranus is doing in Gemini. And it's interesting that Uranus is about to back out into Taurus during the winter season, as if giving the sun a little bit of space before Uranus comes back into Gemini, just in time for that new like sprouting time of the year in early spring. So that's what I've got.
Thank you. That was awesome. Yeah, love that. I think the idea of they're both Mercury ruled signs, right? And Mercury has this mutual reception with the sun that's present during their square and during this new moon cycle. That's really fascinating to me, because I can't help but wonder if whatever breakthrough is constant, Uranian breakthrough is shaping around this new moon, if it wasn't part of the retrograde process on some level. Like, what creative ideas, what revisions, reorganizations, as Mercury is obviously just coming forth as the morning star. It's announcing new things, and then it happens to be host of the new moon cycle. It happens to be in a mutual reception with the sun as the sun squares Uranus, and it's also the host of Uranus. Really makes me feel like the morning star appearance about middle of August is going to be carrying right over into the new moon cycle, in terms of like, there is some very bold, I think, courageous voicings that want to be a part of this. And I think Virgos accommodation is going to be about the details and maybe about the moral implications, maybe also opening up, not being too puritanical, but also making sure that we'll pass the evaluation on a spiritual level, you know, like the karmic level of things, how they're evaluated. A lot of care and innovation going into things later in the month of August. So really fascinating to see that. And thank you for that. That was great. All right. Our last portion of the month is another sequence from Venus. We opened the month with some Venus activity. I'm going to highlight the activity for you and then hand it over to Shahrzad. So we have on the 25th, Venus entering the sign of Leo and immediately making a trine to Saturn. Let me see if I can get Venus into Leo real quick here. Yeah, so here is Venus trining Saturn from Leo. And then on the 26th, it is immediately sextiling Uranus. Now, this is the same exact sequence. Everything's pinging off from the outer planets, the slow-moving planets. Venus will sextile Uranus. Then, of course, after the trine to Saturn comes the trine to Neptune, and then an opposition to Pluto. That's a powerful, quick, fast-moving, very sort of dynamic sequence from Venus. I'm just going to highlight all of the aspects here at once so that you can see them all at once as Shahrzad talks about them for us. What do you think about this?
Yeah, we have Venus in Leo. We have a spicy, fiery goddess here. And this goddess is going to engage with all the three outer planets plus Saturn during this short amount of time. And all of them, it feels like, are going to bring their colors and their tone to Venus within a very short amount of time. To me, it feels like there is like four acts of a play, and each of them, you open the door, Venus opens the door, and it just goes into the play. And Venus in Leo is kind of like doesn't hide her heart. She kind of wears her heart on her crown as a jewel. And if we think of the trine of Venus in Leo with Saturn, since trine is the nature of Jupiter, it is unifying. We can think of a harmonious way of relating these two planets. And this trine could be a reflection on maturity, on realignment, refinement, maybe aligning the desires with a deeper responsibility, because of the trine, there's an elegance to the way these two agree to meet in this unifying aspect. You can think of it as a moment where something difficult or less than ideal turns into something golden, for example, by a refinement or a shift or a change. One question that comes to my mind with this one is, what have you denied yourself that will bloom into something richer? What can you say no to so that you say yes to something bigger, like an elegance through saying no, through discipline? Think of a creator, an artist, who tries to be more minimalistic, just have some restriction to create like a more minimalistic art. For instance, a painter that goes through the painting and, just tries to just move some stuff and just delete some things from their art. And when I think about this transit, I think of a documentary of Beyonce, Homecoming. I'm not sure if you watched it or not, but she had that documentary. In that documentary, it talks about her preparation for Coachella in 2018, right after she gave birth to her twins. And oh my God, that documentary, I was like, that is Venus trine Saturn, and embodying that power, discipline, and the aesthetic and the brilliance. So during that documentary, it shows that she goes on this strict diet, that she eliminated carbs, sugar, dairy, meat, fish, alcohol from her diet. And in the documentary, she says she's doing all of this, like rehearsals, very demanding for the body. And she says, I'm hungry. That she says, I'm doing all of this, but I'm still hungry. You see those moments of Saturnian refinement. And then at the same time, the documentary shows some scenes of her performance at Coachella, and you see that glory, that Venusian glory on the stage, but also you see that hard work behind the scenes, that magnetic presence that is from earned mastery. that's what came to my mind with this transit. And also you can think of Black Swan, the movie. That's kind of like the same theme, like just reaching mastery by discipline and transcendence. And also one more thing that comes to my mind is maybe setting new standards in Venusian topics, love. Like, for instance, you can say, I used to fall for charm, but now I'm choosing character, now I have, more less superficial standards, maturing into less superficial, harmony, for example. Or you may want to, with this transit, I was thinking probably like, you're just going through your apartment, your place, and trying to get rid of things that you don't want, and then you restore your maybe grandmother's old teacup, and just getting the dust off it to use it again. So this transit, I think, reminds us that pleasure and requires commitment, and sometimes saying no, but there's definitely like a glorious thing. And also one more personality that came to my mind was Michelle Obama. She's very Venusian, but at the same time very Saturnian in a harmonious way. She has an exalted Venus in her chart, and she has some Saturnian placements too. She has that dignified, wise, harmonious presence, but at the same time that firm Saturnian. There's a dance between Venus and Saturn in Michelle Obama, in my opinion. So that's with this transit.
Love that.
And the next one, Venus sextiling Uranus in Gemini. So if we think of Uranus, freedom, liberation, revolution, for example, creative. And also there's also the shadow side of Uranus, that it can be unstable, unpredictable. Since sextile is the nature of Uranus, Venus, this is also a supportive aspect. It kind of feels like the fiery Venus is encountering an electric inside. This is kind of reminds me like when you're watching a romantic comedy, and the character meets like an unexpected person in the elevator, and they just feel like a spark, or like it just turns out into like a playful, unexpected love story, or igniting fire with this transit. Or maybe you're swiping right on your dating app, and you just go right on someone that is not your type, but you're like, oh, that's the best date I've ever had. But also with this, with the dark shadow side of it, it is mostly harmonious, but also, we can watch for some impulsiveness and also some thrills that might not be very grounded. With this transit, I can think of some fresh, unconventional pleasures or creative breakthroughs, like a flash of brilliance that inspires you. And I think about, like, for example, a writer that writes a quirky script and they are very shy. They just don't have that confidence, but on a whim, they send it to a director, and that play becomes, like produced and becomes very viral. That archetype comes to my mind. Or maybe, for example, a business owner that instead of Canva uses AI, for example, for the first time to design the business card for their business, for example, or create something artsy for their advertisement using new colors. Or maybe like a sudden change in how you express beauty, your identity. Maybe you just do experiment with your style. Maybe you just discover a new aesthetic. You just put on a new outfit that it is not your signature, but you love it. You're like, oh, this is my new signature. Also something with this, like Venus, Uranus, that reminds me of Lady Gaga and how unusual her style has been during the years. She also has a fiery Venus in her chart, but her experimentation with unusual things, that this transit to me is just shouting, I am Lady Gaga. And also, I'm not sure if you watched the movie, the trilogy, Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, those things. But also, this is a very before sunrise theme for me. Those two strangers that meet spontaneously and spend the night, wandering a city, and just it's very like sudden, but it is unforgettable. That's what comes to my mind with this one.
Love it.
And then Venus trining Neptune in Aries. So if we think of Neptune, we can think of imaginative, dreaming, fantasy, spiritual. It kind of feels like there is a theatrical, heart-driven flair. like that devotion of the love of Gatsby for Daisy and all those parties, and that like Neptunian love that came to my mind. Maybe there's with this transit, there's a push to create like art with soul and not just, like with soul. And also I was thinking maybe an increased craving for peace, for pleasure, for romance as a spiritual experience, for instance, since this transit could bring a powerful rebirth of archetypes that blend sensuality, inspiration. And I was thinking the movie La La Land, it's so Venus Neptune for me. That dreamlike love that inspired greatness on the stage, the love story is based on like a shared artistic dream. He wants to be great in jazz, she wants to be on the stage. They both want that spotlight, that fire spotlight. And also you see that, like the main character, the girl, I forgot the name of the actress, but her name is Mia in the movie. She has an audition that she sings, "Here's to the fools who dream." That is so Venus Neptune, glorifying the courage it takes to pursue beauty and imagination and being on the stage. And also, even though it's not practical, and at the end they don't end up together, but there's a sense that their love meant something, and that even the movie, when you watch it, it's very Neptune like. And I can think of this transit as, like a perfect time for, lighting some incense, playing some soft music, just like cleansing the energy in your environment and yourself, just having some relaxation. It's a great time for romance, creation, relaxation, and Neptune, Venus trine could be great for that. And I know, Adam, you have this in your chart too, so maybe you can enlighten us on that a little bit if you like. Not putting you on the spot, but yeah.
It's easy for me to get pulled into a fantasy life. That I mean, I really wouldn't be here if it weren't for joining all sorts of different cults. And all sorts of art school and religious and spiritual psychedelic like crazy group experiences, and yeah, and always being a romantic too. And my Venus is naturally in Leo, so the Neptune when I was born was in Sag. But yeah, it's a combination that I think I probably always, whenever Venus and Neptune get together in the sky, I always feel really happy. And I think it's probably because I have a harmonious connection between them in my chart,
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Okay, next one, Venus opposite Pluto. That is the final act that the goddess has to open the door and go through the underworld. Poor goddess, but that is the final act. So if you think of Pluto like the unconscious, power, intensity, but at the same time, it could be death, darkness, obsessive, destructive. Opposition is of the nature of Saturn, so there is a tension with this transit. It feels like, as I said, the Venus, has to open this last door and enters the underworld for transformation, purification. It feels like a journey back to the self, but the goddess is coming back from the underworld, maybe more purified, maybe less heavy. It feels like it feels like it says, I have to face this this difficult thing right now, but it is uncomfortable, but I'm going to shed skin from my soul, that it is meant for the evolution of my soul, and I'm going to come back from the underworld stronger, wiser, transformed. And also, maybe this is a time for us to stay grounded and cautious, since this is of the nature of Saturn, and this could be a little bit of a tension. And it kind of feels like, with the previous transit, feels like the dreamy mirage of, Venus, Neptune turns into like a reckoning, it's just the final act of a play but it feels like you're trying to keep things nice and pleasant, but suddenly, something, comes to the surface that might be overwhelming, something hidden, unconscious. And some things to watch for with this one that I was thinking of some keywords, it could be like unconscious power dynamics, a love that consumes, jealousy, obsession, or healing. The positive side of it could be healing, because I believe that every transit at the end of the day could be positive, because everything happens for the purification of our souls. And I think it could be a cathartic moment in relationships, emotional purification that makes the relationship stronger after maybe dealing with it. And also, this is a solar energy with Venus in Leo. It feels like that solar ego goes through the wonder world, says I'm wonderful, but the Pluto is like, honey, it's not always about you, so that comes to my mind, that Pluto is like, maybe I should refine your ego a little bit, my solar Venus. So the opposition could be that tension and pull between that surface glamour as well, sometimes that dark transformation, because Venus is confronting Pluto's power, just a descent from that maybe superficial beauty or that ego or charm into a deeper confrontation with truth, transformation. But the goddess is gonna come back from the underworld definitely more whole and changed. Think of like since this is a solar Venus, think of like for example, one day you see on the news that a pop star, that their marriage was this beautiful, like perfect marriage, is exposed as abusive. They're like, oh, like news, this pop star actually was in an abusive marriage. And then if the pop star just makes an album out of it, comes back, with like a Venusian beautiful theme. And also one more thing that I wanted to mention on Venus Pluto is Frida Kahlo, the wonderful artist. She has a painting that is called The Broken Column, that was painted in 1944, shortly after she had a spinal surgery to correct the ongoing problems that she had that was resulted from a serious traffic accident when she was 18 years old. And her art is very Venus Pluto. So in this art, she painted herself standing alone and naked, and her body is cracked open like a broken statue. And inside her body, you can see a crumbling column that looks like a broken spine. And you can see her face, and there's tears coming down her eyes, and she's looking straight at you, hiding her pain. But the thing is, this painting is kind of like a brave way of showing that even when life breaks you, you can still stand tall and make a beautiful art like this, exactly. It's such a beautiful art.
You can kind of see it right there.
I was looking at it and I was like, wow. So this painting is a brave way of showing that even when life breaks you, like a phoenix, you can still rise from the ashes. Because this is just my personal opinion, that all transits at the end of the day are for the purification of our soul. So this is the phoenix rising from the ashes. And this is the final act of the play of Venus at the end of August.
Yay, that was so good. Thank you. Again, those sequences, this is where a lot of our time and focus for the month ahead is going to take place on the channel. So you'll get more of my thoughts later. We're at about an hour and a half. This is our first time jamming together as a band. So thank you for your patience as we all figure out the pacing and it takes a few sessions typically for us to all really dial in, but this was great. I really loved hearing from everybody. I think each of you bring something so unique in the way you break things down, in the way you think about astrology. And I can't wait to keep playing with the way that we do content, the formats we choose to explore. This is going to be really fun. I want to tell people how they can find all of you before we go. So for Courtney, you're going to find Courtney on Instagram at Dream the Wilderness. You can find her also, and awesome content on Instagram. I love what you create, and everyone else will enjoy it too. The combination between rewilding and astrology is so rich. And dreamthewilderness.substack.com is the other place people can find you. And I'm assuming people are able to book a reading through one of those?
Yep, the Substack is where you can book a reading. There's a little link right at the top. It's hard to miss.
Very cool. These are all people that not only are great content creators, but great readers. So make sure you check that out as well. Okay. Where am I? Okay. So Bianca on Instagram, it is Bianca Selene Astrology. I'm missing my @ I'm going to edit that because it bothers me so much. It looks better with an @ there it is. Is that right? Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yep, that's me. You can find me there. And there's also a link to book in my bio in Instagram. But if you're not on Instagram, then there's the website as well.
Yes. And then the website is biancaselene.com. Is that right?
That's me.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, I wanted to mention do I say, is it Maori? Is that how I say?
Yeah, I'm Māori.
Maori.
Yeah, Māori.
Maori. Okay.
That's the native, indigenous people of New Zealand. So yeah,
That is very cool.
Yeah.
Love that. And we're gonna ask you more about that and your experience as we go throughout the year.
Yeah, happy to share. Yeah.
And then let's go to Tim, sorry. I'm just looking at the linktree.com/Timothy Pauldon. What will people find when they go to Linktree here?
Yeah, they'll find a link to my YouTube channel, my Instagram, as well as my Blue Sky account that I'm most active. My Twitter is up there, but less astrologically inclined. Blue Sky is where I keep most of my Twitter comments Blue Sky comments about what's going on with transits and current stuff.
Cool. And then is it @Cosmic Blueprint?
Yep, that's it. That's me on Instagram. My link tree is also there. So if you want to come there, drop some cool content and videos and stuff from time to time. So yeah, follow me.
Awesome. Very cool. And then Shahrzad is on Instagram @NewMoonInnerHealing. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Awesome. And so you can follow her there for lots of good stuff. And then the website is New Moon Healings with an S, newmoonhealings.com. And people can book a reading there?
Yes.
Yeah. And if you want more juicy Venus metaphors, I'm sure that Shahrzad will come up with them for your birth chart, which no pressure. That was such a good lady got you doused us with divas. That was really cool.
Thank you. I love I have a moon in Leo, so I love the Venus in Leo archetype.
Of course you do. That makes total sense. Okay, well, thank you everybody for listening. We hope that August is magical, and we'll be looking forward to breaking things down. And then you will see all of us again for the September the astrological overview for the month of September. And we're going to be getting into eclipses. So welcome everybody. We're so glad that all of you new content creators are here, and look forward to doing more soon. So on that note, hope you guys are having a good day out there, and we'll see you again soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.